15 years, I mean, the damage that load shedding has brought to this economy has been incalculable.
The death toll from the recent floods in the South African province of KwaZulu-Natal has risen to 49.
After a fairly subdued night, the Knysna fires have begun to grow again.
We begin tonight with the nation already on edge in the coronavirus pandemic as protests turn violent.
London's burning and no one seems able to bring it under control.
You're listening to Off-Grid Survival, South Africa's first prepper podcast.
And we are your hosts, Bret and Ben. Good afternoon, Ben. Welcome back.
Good afternoon, Bret. How are you this fine weekend?
Awesome. Episode 6, here we come.
Yay.
So, I think we've had to make a bit of a decision that we're going to drop our little funny news segment at the front. It wasn't really working that great. And because we record a week or two in advance, by the time the episode gets out,
it's a bit old.
The news is a bit stale.
Yeah.
But what I think we're going to do is we're going to keep the special report side of it. Yeah. If anything major league happens that we think people need to be made aware of, we'll do a special report and we'll post that pretty much on the day, like I did with the solar flare.
Oh, that'll be good.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to jump straight in, and we're going to talk about something that has been on my mind for a while now, and that's something called a mag.
Like what they put on cars?
No, the wrong type of mag. Those are nice, shiny ones. This stands for Mutual Assistance Group or Mutual Aid Group. So basically a mag is a group of people that get together and prep together, whether it is making a plan where to meet when they need to bug out, or whether it's a mutual buying system where you put money together, almost like a stokvel. And then you can go, one person will go and go to Macro and one of those places and buy bulk to get a better price.
Okay. Well, yeah, if you have a group like that where if somebody's going to go get a sheep and can't afford the whole thing,
that's it.
Everybody puts together and shares it out.
Or even if, I know guys that go hunting occasionally and they say, okay, cool, it's going to cost X amount for a springbok or a blessbok or whatever they're going to go and shoot. And then you can let your guys in your mag know that, hey, I've got a guy, he's going shooting. He's got space, he's got time. We just need to pay in and we'll get the meat off it. Yeah. And then we can split it up. That's one way of doing it. Or you see that bully beef and rice is on special at Spar or Pick and Pay or whatever. But if you go in, you buy in bulk, you're going to make savings.
Yeah.
And then everybody gets their share. So it makes it an easy way to get supplies, especially for beginners. But there's a lot more that goes into a mag than just having a cooperative buying group. And a lot of it becomes fairly political.
Well, I understand the idea of, if we say, for argument's sake, there's a special on a Macro in PE.
Yeah.
To say, okay, well, somebody's going to drive through and everybody puts a little bit in for fuel and we come back with a lot.
That's it.
So it becomes worthwhile. But that is still, each person is buying their own stuff. I assume with this mag idea is you're putting into a kitty or a collective.
Well, that's one way of doing it. So like with the stokvel where you would put money every month, say 200 Rand per person every month, you can do a cooperative buying on a similar way, where either you do a monthly buy or maybe at the end of the year you go and you do a massive buy. It's quite a common thing in certain communities. We see it at the end of the year, especially where I work. They call themselves the clubs, come in, and it's just trolleys of stuff going out, whether it's pap or rice or baked beans, but it's generally bulk buying for a group to get a better price.
Oh, that makes sense. But then that stuff is still your own.
Yes.
What happens in a mag when you want to do something together to get out of Dodge, but one guy has a container load of stuff and the other guy comes with his pick and pay packet?
So that's where it gets difficult. With a mag, the first thing you need to do is you need to identify what your need is going to be. Why are you starting it?
Yes.
Okay. So is it just purely to do cooperative buying, or is it to make a plan that when SHTF happens, whether it's a fire or civil unrest or whatever the case is, that you all meet at a certain spot and then you bug out together.
Yeah.
Or bug in, depending on the situation. So you need to identify your need, what you want to do first. What is the point of having your group?
Yes.
Is it just a group of buddies that get together on a Saturday afternoon, crack a couple of beers and have a braai? That's a good way to start, maybe. But you need to look at it from a more, I'll have to say, almost a pragmatic point of view. Like, it needs to become almost militaristic in a way. And I hate using that term because we're not military, we're civilian. But you've got to structure it and decide how you're going to do things to have control of it.
I suppose if you start your mag from your braaiing buddies, you're already doing the braaiing side of things and you're already choosing to spend time with those people.
That's it, yeah.
The problem with setting up something from scratch is you don't know what you're getting. And it's not like you can background check people. And it's difficult to build something with people that you wouldn't normally hang around with, because when everything goes to that fan, you're not going to be wanting to listen to this person who you don't actually have any trust in.
So a good place to start with something like that, if you're not doing it with a group of friends, is get to know the people in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Join maybe your neighborhood watch. Neighborhood watches are great because you're already a group of people that are security orientated. You're worried about the security of your neighborhood.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, you can then talk to people and take it to another level. So you use your neighborhood watch maybe as a backbone to your personal group. So I look at it as a mag as almost like it's going to sound a bit cheesy. I look at it like an onion. So you have different layers, with your core being your family. First and foremost, you've got your family that you look after. And you've got already got communication set up with the people in your family. You've got maybe a family WhatsApp group or something like that. Then your next layer out would be your close friends, people that are also interested in this sort of thing. And then you can start spreading out through your neighborhood. But again, it all depends on what your initial needs are.
Yeah. I can understand that, but I've been I still am in a neighborhood watch that there's such a variety of people in that neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
90% of the people I won't go out of my way to spend time with. They just happen to be in the same neighborhood watch as me.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're wanting this thing to be a long-term project or experiment, wouldn't you choose people that you would want to spend time with?
No, definitely. And I think you need to have clear leadership as well. So if you're the person that is starting a mag, are you the leader, or are you giving that role to someone else? Are you going to maybe vote at some point on who's going to be the leader of the group? Are you going to run it as a committee? Are you going to have a dictatorship or a democracy, basically, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Once you've identified your needs and you've got your core team of people. So let's round it down to say we've got 10 people, 10 friends and family that are in your group. Each person in that group has got certain skills.
Yeah.
So for instance, one of my things that I'm interested in and I practice is first aid. Whereas somebody else I know, he's a builder and he's really good at building stuff.
Yes.
And he's also got different types of vehicles to what I've got, so he can carry heavy loads if need be. So everybody can have a specific role, and then other people can have maybe multiple roles, or everybody can have multiple roles, but they've got a specific role.
But are these the people that you choose to spend your time with?
These are people that you would choose. Yeah, this is now your core group of people for your mutual assistance group.
No. Well, that's the crux of the whole thing, is choosing those people. Obviously, in your planning phase, you don't tell everybody what you're doing. You find that core group and then you go
of
forward.
Like-minded people, yeah.
Yeah, you go forward with an OPSEC type mindset so that you're not advertising what you're planning and doing in the like a prepper mindset type.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that's also very important at this point is to say we're not trying to create a militia. We're not going for the go on the weekends to the gun range and everybody learns how to shoot and run around in camo. And in this country and in other countries, it's got a bit of a negative stereotype.
I think you should go to the range and practice and learn.
No, I'm not saying don't do that.
It shouldn't be your
primary goal.
It shouldn't be your primary goal, because there's so much to living besides firearms.
Totally.
And self-defense.
Like you could have a braai at your house and discuss with your friends or your core group
all the things you can buy on Temu.
Yeah, let's not even go there. But like how to store and purify water.
Yes.
It might not sound like much, but you could literally talk about that once the ideas start flowing.
You have a bit of a competition who can do it
Yeah,
best.
one guy's using a Sawyer Mini, other guy's got a inline filter on his tap, next guy's got a rain catchment system, and see who can come up with good ideas. The general idea behind a mag is to have cooperation.
Yeah.
And I think that's what is key. It's about like-minded, I hate using the term like-minded people. It's about like-minded people getting together and doing, so firstly, something we enjoy, because we do enjoy prepping.
Yeah.
We don't do it purely out of necessity. If you're doing it purely out of necessity, you're going to get into panic situations. You've got to actually have fun with it as well.
Yes. Well, the thing is, you might not like the term like-mindedness, but it is very important because those are the people you're going to spend time with, you want to spend time with. And when the pawpaw hits the fan, they aren't the sudden new friend you find that is wanting to spend time with you only because you have.
Yeah.
It's like you winning the lotto. You never knew you had so many friends and family till you win the lotto.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, if I can't invite you around to my house for a braai, I'm not going to want to spend a long time with you in a situation where you've had to bug out and go to location alpha.
You assume that hasn't been burnt to location delta.
Well, that's why you have plans. You have multiple plans.
Yes.
But I look at what happened in 2021 in KZN, how the community rallied around each other to protect the neighborhoods. And I'm sure a lot of that was organic in the moment. But if there had been neighborhood watchers and maybe people with a mag mindset, and a prepper mindset, it maybe would have been handled in a different way. I don't know.
Well, in 2017, in the fires where I stay, there was a neighborhood watch, but people did come together organically and the leadership grew organically, more specifically because you had people that had enough knowledge to lead.
Yeah.
And they fought fires together and they organized people together. So everyone, the one guy couldn't walk and he just had himself driven around and offered people coffee.
Okay.
So you didn't have to worry about food.
Yes.
You didn't have to worry about water because people would find you to give you stuff while you fought the fire.
So now imagine you had that same mindset, but organized beforehand. So you know that, okay, the fires have happened. These 4 people are going out to maybe stand guard or make sure there's a fire break. This person is designated that they're in charge of delivering drinks and organizing supplies. And this person is in charge of first aid. If you've got that preset, then things will run a lot smoother in an emergency situation.
The thing
you need to practice.
Yeah, we have had an organization, and we even started a separate one to more local to our area, and had committees and everything else, and neighborhood watch, the whole lot. And in 7 years, it's disintegrated to the point where there's people making decisions that do not have the mindset of the people that started the decision, because only the people that want to be the political animals actually stand for election.
Yes.
And the rest of the people couldn't be bothered to have to put the time into dealing with the politics. And so ultimately you get these people making decisions that aren't the prepared mindset, the security conscious, the guy that's willing to fight the fire. They're the people that want to do the admin and willing to do that. And so the decisions become worse and worse and worse. And now 7 years later, we're less in a position, or not that from 2017, but we're less in a position now from where we were at our peak, because the organization has dropped off. So now we're trying to start one that is more like-minded people, and it's not a voting base.
So you need, like I said, you need a core group of people.
Yeah.
And they need to, personally, I think as soon as you move to a committee type system, then decisions get thrown out the window. Then it just becomes an argument, basically, because everything has to go to committee, firstly. And then secondly, they're making political decisions. They're not making it for the greater good.
Well, the big problem is if you want to have an NPO or something like that, where you're getting assistance, donations, you have to have a committee.
Yeah, I think that's NPO is very different to a MAG, though.
So now, if you're a MAG, you're not having to worry about that. But you do need somebody who's going to keep track of the finances and be accountable. You do need somebody that you can say, I watched a movie a long time ago, and these soldiers all got they got captured by the enemy. And immediately what they do is they get together and say, you're in charge of communication. Bret, you're in charge of food. You're in charge of... And so the person that's in charge of food makes sure that everybody in the group gets fed. The person in charge of water makes sure that everybody gets water. And so they immediately split stuff up.
100%.
And it doesn't matter who gets chosen. Their sole job is to make sure that the rest of their group has everything they need.
And that's where a mag becomes more militaristic in a way, in that in the military, you've got specific jobs and specific goals, and each person has got their role.
Yes.
And I think that if we want to create a cohesive group that works together, everybody has to have a dedicated role, and they've got to understand their place in the system.
So they all need to know each other's role as well.
Yeah, oh no, definitely.
You might find Bret has a broken leg and suddenly he can't do jumping jacks. Somebody else has to.
So, like, for instance, I said I'm into first aid.
Yeah.
I think that everybody should know first aid. But maybe I am a more experienced first aider. I've had more hands-on experience. So I'm going to be good at training and teaching other people first aid, so that if a group goes out to, let's say we're now 5 years after civilization has collapsed and a group's got to go out and scavenge, firstly, they know what to look for. Secondly, if something happens, they know how to treat an injury.
Yes.
And in a more everyday scenario, I'm the first aider, something happens, people come to me, but if I'm not available, they can go to anybody else and get the boo-boo looked at.
Yes. It's important that we cross-trained in different areas, but it does come down to we need some sort of leadership. I've been hunting with my brother and mates and stuff, and you arrive at the house that you're going to be staying at. The first person goes to light the donkey. You go to light the donkey, somebody's lighting the donkey, so you go put the coffee on.
Yeah.
The next person looks at the donkey's being lit, the coffee's on, I'm going to make the fire outside for food. So each person is wanting to do something, and they will go down the chain of the things that in order of necessity.
Yeah.
Now, hot water and coffee are right up there in the top most important parts of the necessity. So that's what we deal with first. But there's not one person that works with his hands in his pockets waiting for other people to do it. If you're the first up, you do it.
So you said a key word there, and it's work.
Yeah.
So the idea is that nobody is just sitting around giving orders. I think it is essential.
Yeah.
Everybody has a job, and everybody needs to know what their job is, and
if you
have a
don't
list of
job,
priorities.
Yeah.
It's kind of like being at work, but a bit more fun.
Yeah. But I know it goes against the whole macho thing, but if somebody's chopping wood, maybe you're got to cook the food. If somebody else cooked the food, you got to do the dishes. If somebody else did the dishes, you got to pack them away.
Yep.
So you find that the job naturally rotates. We were on a hike. The group I'm with, they did a 7-day hike on bicycles, and I was with them for the first bit. But you have a whole bunch of grown men, and the one man is the chef. The other man has an important job out in the real world, he did the dishes. The next night, somebody else did the dishes.
Yeah.
So it rotates because each of us we have our roles, but then there's stuff that has to be done, and no one is standing with their hands in their pockets waiting for stuff to be done.
You're working as a team.
Yeah. And so even though we had one person who was the organizer, and that's maybe the better word to use than the leader or the boss, but they're the organizer, and you can rotate the people. So if it's a long-term mag, you can have it that Bret is the organizer for month of March. Ben is the organizer for the month of whatever comes after March. April. There we go. And so on and so forth, so that you have the different dynamics, because each person looks at stuff differently, but also it gives each person a chance to internalize the structure and what was done, because they have to actively think about what's the next step. So if Bret is always doing it, Ben just has to sit on his rear and listen to instructions.
Yeah.
And then Bret's gone, and suddenly Ben doesn't know where the salt is kept or what the plan was for the next. But if Ben is forced to do the next step in his chance at organizing, he has to learn what was done, what is being done now, and what has to be done. So if you rotate through your leadership in air quotes, each person gets that chance. And that's where you can build in a cross training that each person understands the other's jobs.
Yeah, it's about having structure. So I like the idea of rotating responsibility.
Yeah.
I think it's good. But at the end of the day, everybody or most of the people that are going to be in the group are going to be adults.
Yes.
Yes, there will be kids as well because they are with family, but they're not going to be in leadership positions.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that are married or have a girlfriend or something. Some of those partners will be in the structure because they want to be part of the structure.
Yeah.
Other people aren't interested, so they will only come in when
something happens. Yeah.
Pawpaw. And so they won't be in that structure. But by that time, your core is strong and they cohesive.
Yeah, cohesion is a very important part to this, because without, and we keep coming back to it, without having a core set of goals and a core team, you're not going to get very far.
I agree with that. But coming back to mags specifically, what are the pros and cons as you see it?
Okay, so let's start with the pros. Okay. So let's take it even simpler. Let's go back to the cooperative buying side specifically of a mag.
Okay.
And the pros for that. So the most obvious one is buying in bulk, which will give you access to cheap and plentiful supplies. And then buying with other people gives you access to things you wouldn't normally buy. So for instance, I've mentioned it before, samp is not something I've really eaten before. But if somebody goes and buys 5-10 kilo bags of it and I've got an opportunity to get some, I'm not going to say no.
Yeah, I suppose if you're in a mag and samp was 20 Rand a kilo, but we were going to buy a ton because we were in a group and we were going to get it for 8 Rand a kilo, it's a worthwhile buying of it.
I don't have room for a ton.
No, you're in a mag, so each person would be taking...
No, I understand what you're saying.
I'm not talking like 5 people going 200 kilos of it. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'll be eating samp for the rest of my life. The other thing is that buying as a group can motivate you when you're starting to have a bit of prepper fatigue. And for those who haven't experienced prepper fatigue yet, it's when basically it just gets too much and you've like, oh, I've got enough stuff.
Also, you start losing your... I don't know, creativity.
Yeah.
You know, when you're talking about stuff, you're like, oh, yeah, of course, that is what I can do. But if you have to come up with and reinvent the wheel all the time, it's painful.
And having that mutual assistance group there as a kind of backup to keep you motivated, I think is a really, really good thing.
Yeah.
Then one thing we haven't discussed is equipment, buying of equipment. So as everybody knows in South Africa, buying anything is expensive. Even something as simple as a decent quality dehydrator, you're looking at 3,500-4,000 Rand. Yeah. And not everybody can afford that. But if you've got a group of 6 or 7 people and everybody puts in 500 Rand, all of a sudden you can afford a dehydrator.
Yeah.
And a decent quality one at that. And you can then take turns, either it stays at one person's house and you go around there and you do all your veggie chopping and everything and you set the thing up and you pay that person for the use of electricity. That's something you'd have to discuss. Or every month it moves from one person to another. That's also an option.
Yeah. Years ago, a friend of mine and we bought a meat saw together. Just for that reason, because it was a little pricey, but when the two of us put together, it wasn't that bad.
But even with something like ammo, the price of ammo nowadays, maybe getting together and buying a reloading equipment might be an option as well, because that's also pretty pricey.
Yes, but then you start knocking into legal issues depending on who has licenses and who doesn't, and
But it still can give you an opportunity to learn a new skill at the very least.
Yes.
And if properly organized, in a tight month, you can pull out of the buying side. But when things are getting a bit better, you can get back in and maybe add a bit extra. Again, these are things you'd have to discuss with the group.
Yeah. Assuming you're doing a monthly thing, not just a purchase.
Yeah. So again, as with everything, it takes planning and it takes cooperation.
Yes.
So for me, those are some of the pros. When it comes to the cons, it's a little bit different. You can be limited in choice if people are just buying rice and pasta the whole time.
Yeah.
And you want to go and get bully beef. But no, this month we're buying rice. You're going, but I've got rice. I need bully beef. So you can be limited in that way.
But it should take a few buying cycles for all of you to get to like a similar place.
Yeah. So this is obviously assuming that people have come in at different levels of their preparedness journey. Like myself, I've been prepping now for close to 6 years. And I've got friends that are just starting out and they go, oh, what should they get? And I'm going, okay, well, you need to get X. And they go, oh, can we get together? And I'm like, oh, I've already got. I don't need more rice.
Yes.
I've already got 30 odd kilos. If I buy more rice, my wife's going to kill me.
Well, this is where you can look at saying, okay, you don't mind buying more rice, but what you do is half of your stash they get so that they can start using, and you get newer. And this is also where you keep track of how old your stock is. So the idea is to get to a point where you're cycling through your stuff in normal use so that you don't have your bug out or your bug in stuff being 10 years old, but the stuff that you're leaving at home is, a couple of months old.
Definitely. And that comes down to having well organized and a consensus on what you're going to be buying.
Yeah.
And then another could be a con, it could be a pro, I suppose, is trust. You have to have a huge amount of trust in maybe somebody you don't know that well that you're now giving money to go and buy stuff. I've got to trust you that you're going to drive to PE and you're going to go and buy that pallet of salmon, where I might have only known you for a couple of months because I've just joined a group.
Yeah.
So
you could always drive with.
You could, if you've got the time. You might not always have the time. That's why you've joined a group, so that other people can help you out.
True. But then you got to trust.
Then you got to trust, yeah.
And for people that don't trust very easily, it's difficult.
And generally, us in the prepper community, we do have some trust issues sometimes.
Well, sometimes then it comes back to who is in your group.
Yeah. That's why I say, if you can start a group with friends, I think that is still the best way to start.
Yeah.
And later on, you can bring other people in if you want to. But I would keep it small, keep it simple.
Friends and family are the best, but friends and family who are like-minded.
Definitely.
Because you can have friends and family that do not share your views or your
principles. Very much so. I remember when the first time I told my sister that I was into prepping, she looked at me like, have you gone off your rocker, dude? And then when I had to sit down, I didn't have to sit down and explain it to her, but I did sit down and explain it to her. She was, okay, no, she understands what I'm doing, but you're crazy. I'm like, no, I'm not crazy. Don't worry. I'm fine.
Was this before or after COVID?
After.
And she still thought that?
Let's not go there.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people change their mind about being prepared. And I'm not talking about, having 5 years worth of food. Just having 5 days worth of food in your house makes a difference.
I don't know if you've seen, but the UK government, I don't know if we discussed this already, the UK government has got a prepping.org.gov website now, which is run by the UK government. They've literally got a minister of prepping because they've become aware that with the situation in Ukraine and in the Middle East, that anything can happen at any time. And they're kind of doing what the CDC in America has done, FEMA in America, where they've recommending that people have a minimum of 3 days supplies and that sort of thing, which to me is just common sense.
Yeah.
Like, the idea of not having 3 days worth of food in my house, I'd be panicking if I had less than 3 days food in my house.
Yeah, it makes sense because you can't always get to places.
Yeah.
So even if you work one would wish a 9-to-5 job, but more realistically,
what's a 9-to-5 job? Dude?
More realistically, like 7 till 5.
Yeah,
you don't often have time to go out to do stuff. So you need to cook on the weekend for the week.
Yeah,
you need to have access to food during the week, and which means you don't have the time to stop. Or if you do, you're blowing through money because you're going to restaurants or takeouts or stuff.
Yeah.
And that's not good practice.
Yeah. So I think we've covered quite a lot of ground with regard to mags. This is a huge topic. We'll definitely be coming back to it. And I think there's so much to discuss. Another part to it, which we haven't really discussed, though, which maybe we can get into now quickly, is a training aspect of having a MAG group. So let's go back to my first aid example. I can train people in first aid, but I know nothing about firefighting, and you know about firefighting. So you can train me with regard to firefighting. The advantage of having that MAG group is that you can almost formalize the instruction. Say there's a Stop for Bleed course happening in town. You can get your guys together and you can go, guys, this course is happening in town. I think we should do it. And everybody from your group or 5 guys from your group go and they do the course. You are then learning knowledge is preparedness as well.
Yeah. I suppose if you want to do a training thing, the idea is to get together for training. You can always look at, we want to do a level 3 first aid course.
Yeah.
But if we have 10 guys, we get a cheap rate. We get a hold of the guys, do a level 3 or a firefighting course or a basic firearms course or a scuba diving course. But we always have the buying power of 10 people.
And to me, I think that is the main advantage, especially in South Africa, where things cost so much.
Yes.
is that we're working as a group. If we can bring prices down and make things more affordable, the stuff's still expensive, but it really helps you if you can learn things at a better price.
Better price is always better.
Yeah.
You can do more with the same amount of money, and
Well, that's it. Yeah.
the rand doesn't go a long way, and you got to stretch it.
Definitely. Yeah.
So not a rubber check type stretch. You just make it go a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think with regard to mags for now, we'll leave it there.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Brett,
okay, go ahead.
Listeners, I like Brett. So this is not me attacking him, but Brett, you and I share some things alike, but other things we don't hold the same religious views. We have different types of family backgrounds. We have different types of interests.
Yeah.
We do hold certain interests, and we have different personalities, quite different. How would we start a mag, regardless of what type? How would you start a mag so that the two of us could gather like-minded people around us for whatever purpose, while avoiding the pitfalls of different religions, different politics, different views on guns, different views on what's funny or not?
Yeah.
You know?
So different people have different personalities. And as adults, we accept that. We work with people every day that have different views and that sort of thing. But in a more tight-knit group, I think as long as you've got some core values that you can hold together, you can do a lot with that. You need a starting point. And once you've got a starting point, you can work from there. So, for instance, with you and I, we've got some similar interests, and that's why we started this podcast. And I've gone blank.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not disputing that. I know a lot of adults, and I work with a lot of adults. But you know what? I can go home.
Very
Okay?
true. Very true.
I don't spend my time with those adults.
Yeah.
Only at work or only in social engagements that I have to spend time. The people that I spend my time with are the people I want to spend my time with. Okay. Now, you and I, obviously, like I said, we do want to spend time with each other. Okay. But we have never been tried on having to work out a conflict because of any of the previously mentioned.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So how do we formalize a structure that we can solve? Because remember, it's one thing to solve a problem when the fan isn't turning.
Yes.
But when the fan is actively ripping the situation apart, it's difficult to problem solve.
Very much.
Especially non-emotional guys getting emotional. That's generally ended up fist fights.
It's a very valid point and a very difficult subject. That's why we need to discuss it. And I'm not sure how I would handle that. I think you need to get to know people in the here and now. And if you train together, if you discuss different things, so I hate getting into politics and religion, but if you have a discussion about politics and religion, you can quickly find out where you disagree. But as grown-ups, if I can be so bold, we can also agree to disagree and work together for what is, again, the greater good.
Well, our greater good.
Our greater good, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
I do want a cornetto after this, just by the way.
The big problem I see is a lot of people get together. It's like a marriage.
Yes.
You get a guy and a girl. They meet each other. They fall in love. They're so head over heels. They've never had any discussions about anything of substance. They get married, and the first time they disagree with each other, they're in divorce court.
Yeah.
You can't wait till you have your problem, or you can't wait till you have your kids, because before you discuss your views on discipline, your views on anything, and this is one thing you touched on. If you train hard together, you go through a firing, like a kiln,
Yeah.
You're going through a firing process where you develop a trust and a camaraderie with the people in your mag.
Yeah, well, basically, back in the army days, that's what basic training was about. It was to get you to break down those barriers and not necessarily become friends, but you living with these guys. You've got to trust these guys with your life. But look, a mag is not the army.
Yeah. You had people screaming at you in the army. I wasn't there, but I've heard.
Yeah.
So how do we put ourselves in the position of voluntarily putting ourselves through hardship before we encounter hardship?
So having open discussions about subjects is important, but going on something like a 5-day camping trip, things get real after the second day. First 2 days, the beers are flowing and everybody's having a good time. By the time you get to day 4, day 5, you're already starting to get hurtful with that guy because he doesn't wash the dishes, or he doesn't, and
He doesn't just wash at all.
or he doesn't wash. Don't even get me started on that one. Yeah, so like a extended camping trip, an extended hiking trip, where you can actually see people under pressure, where you can't just pack up and go home, where you're literally living with those people. That's a great way of testing people's mettle.
Yeah, and also their commitment to the whole project.
Look, we all want to have fun, but there is a serious side to what we do as well.
Yeah.
And like I said, we're not the military, we're not a militia, but we need to understand what we're doing, and we need to work together as a team.
Yes.
I think that's important. Is that like I said right at the beginning, it's such a difficult subject, this. But it's one that fascinates me partially because there is a political aspect to it. And quite often in the prepper world, a lot of the guys are lone. And the idea of even being part of a group, they want to go out into the woods and they're going to survive by themselves. But the reality of the situation is that most of the time, when it comes to things happening, it's short term.
Yeah.
You're not going to be bugging out into the wilderness if there's a fire.
Yeah.
You're going to have to draw together as a community. And if you've got a group already established, then it's a lot easier to draw the community together.
Yes. But also, in a grid down, end of the world type thing, you get this mentality, might is right.
Yeah.
Coming up. And when you're the lone wolf, your might is not that mighty, and you can be snuffed very easily.
Yeah.
But when you're a group and relying on each other and working together, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to take out a colony of ants.
Yeah.
Where one anteater is pretty easy to wipe out.
Yeah, so I think I was going to say teamwork is dream work, but I hate that. So please cut that.
You're so much into the cliches now, bro.
I've had a very long week at work, and it is now Sunday afternoon, so I'm tired. My brain is not in full active mode. I apologize.
Well, I think we have covered everything, and it's good to chat. It's good to chat about stuff. And
no, I enjoy. I think the discussion side is the important side of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And learning, like the other day we discussed at a braai about stoking, making fuel, other things, what a person needs, and if it's sustainable.
Yeah.
How a person would go about actually doing the things and whether it's useful. Because a lot of people, with the COVID side, the first thing they did was
panic.
Panic, but then they wanted their dop, So that's what they went for. So from what I've discussed now, that's if it's for medicine, but again, that's coming back down to mutual assistance groups, sharing that knowledge.
Yeah.
Not being necessarily the expert at it, but having one of those experts of various fields in your group is useful.
I was going to say South Africa, the home of pineapple beer. But having people experts in fields is very important.
Yes. And when you have a person that is passionate about their field, they will tend to want to share with the people around them. And if your mag is prepping and training and all the things that we've discussed, you have the best of all the worlds, because even if the world doesn't fall apart, you have bettered each other, you are prepped, you have a mindset of buying in bulk, saving money, so you are raising each other up in a financial sense. And then you're getting trained, you're learning new skill.
And what we all hope at the end of the day is that nothing ever happens. We hope that there's not going to be mass civil unrest in South Africa. We hope there's not going to be a massive fire or a massive flood where we have to leave our homes. But at the same time, we've trained together that if it does happen, we know what to do.
Yes. And
rather have it and not need it, than need it and not have it.
Of course. An empty mind will panic.
Yeah.
So if we don't have an empty mind, we're less likely to panic.
Yeah.
About the future or the situation that we're going through.
Definitely.
Yeah. But thank you very much for having me.
No, it was good. It was a fun one. Next episode, I have a special treat for everybody. It has been confirmed that we are going to be doing an interview with the guys from Food Socks So we will not be having a discussion like we do most times, but it'll be a straight up interview episode for episode 7. So we're going to be recording with them next Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to trying some of their food.
Yeah, I look forward to actually doing the whole interview thing. I missed the last time.
Oh, yes, of course. You weren't there. I was in Cape Town, so you haven't done an interview yet.
No.
This is going to be fun.
I'm going to have to think of questions.
Not a problem. Anyway, Ben, awesome seeing you again. And to our listeners, see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Off-Grid Survival. For more info and updates, feel free to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Off-Grid Survival ZA. That's it for now. We will see you next time. And always remember, be prepared.